So I want to do a quick recap of my first ever game that I finished, quotes finished, for Ludum Dare 32, which was from Friday to Monday this weekend. So if you look here, this is my entry in the jam section because I took an extra day. I already got 2 votes. I'm only being judged in 6 categories because I did use some graphics and sound from external things, kind of, but yeah, that's fine. So the theme is an unconventional weapon, and I chose the game My Voice is My Weapon. So when you get to this page, it loads up. It's kind of big. It's over 15 megabytes, mainly because there's 3 maps and each one is about 5 megabytes. So this is what happens when you come to my page. Gives you you can actually run the game. The game runs in HTML5. I haven't exported it to other things. So this is the biggest window they allow on this site, but it works better in full screen because I set up the game originally as 1080p, but I'm probably going to downsize the game so it works better at smaller resolutions because text becomes very hard to read when you downscale it. So you can see some images here. It just shows you the main screen, the level select, and then the game itself. Yeah, this is a hard game. I'll tell you about that. So yeah, I'll talk about some of the things, but I'll just show you what the game is like first. So I'll toggle full screen, and then I'll get rid of my own head for a minute. So this is the game, and this link goes to my Twitter page, but it only works if you launch it from the original and not inside of a frame. The credits, it just shows you how I created it with construct tube. There's my name, email address. Here's the logo you can drag around and it rotates randomly. Satellite images are from Google, so I borrowed those for now. And I don't want to use these satellite images in the final game. In the final game I want to create my own, and it gives you the dates. So you can type in what you want to say and test it. So like follow my cause for freedom or something. And then you press this, and if you're in Chrome,
follow my cause for freedom.
It'll say something. Now, a lot of browsers seem to have trouble with the synthetic voice thing, so this might be grayed out for some people, which means you can type something in here, but it's not going to speak it in the game,
follow
which is
my
unfortunate.
cause for freedom.
And I might want to do something later on. One of the changes I want to make, of course I'd like to make this whole page look a little more customized, I guess, so it's not so generic looking, but I want to, for people who can't do the synthetic
follow my
voice,
cause for freedom.
When this is grayed out, it doesn't work. I want to have some kind of pre-recorded stuff, and there is already pre-recorded audio in the game, so I just have to get around to recording the audio so it can work, and that's probably a better idea, even though the files are really small, so it's not that big a deal, I think, to use pre-recorded audio. Here's the controls. So far I support mouse and keyboard, or just keyboard and controller, so the reason why I haven't implemented click to move yet, so you need the arrow keys or the D-pad to move around, or the left stick, and then use the left mouse click or control or button 1, which is usually A button, to say your custom slogan.
Follow my cause for freedom.
And then if you hit the right mouse button or shift or B button, button 2, you basically say a random batch of 8 things, and those are the things I want to pre-record so that and I also might want to have a drop-down list of some slogans that people can select if this doesn't work, so at least they don't have to see text and not hear anything. The goals: use slogans near people to convert them. So basically, right now if you say either one of these, it's pretty much the same thing. So the choice is really just what batch of things you want to draw from, but they both do the same thing. They'll convert people if they're close enough to you, and the time is right, so it's kind of random, a little bit randomized. Also, you have to respond to the protesters that you get with a slogan, so you have about 5 seconds after they say something to say something. So generally right now you just spam these slogans as much as you want, which I'm going to change that mechanic in the future so you can't just spam it. Right now you gain 100 protesters to convert the city. That basically is how you win. And I'm probably going to do an option here where you can select how many you can get. Like you might want to do 100%, which would be very difficult. So, you know, I might want to have a difficulty setting where you don't have to get up to 100. Maybe you only get 50 or 25 or something. Try not to get busted by touching the stars. So there's these things called stars, which are kind of like the police that will come after you, and if they touch you, basically you have to restart. It's game over. So I think I need to, you'll see in the game, I need to make these guys more distinguishable from the regular citizens, because right now they're everyone's very similar looking because they're basically squares. So you get to customize your hue, and you can see it goes from red to apparently black. I don't know, sometimes it does that. But you got blue. This should be going to purple, but yeah. And pretty much any color you want, but you have to use the mouse or the keyboard controls to do this. You can't do it with the gamepad yet. So that's another thing I want to do, is implement some way of controlling or getting through these menus using just the gamepad for people who prefer that method. Touch controls are also a possibility, but I have to do even more work to get that to work in this game. But I think touch controls work like the mouse, and right now the mouse isn't fully implemented as a controlling device, so I need to work on that. So I pick that, and then saturation controls. If it's, I also want to label these more. This is all GUI stuff that kind of gets left in the dust when you're trying to complete a game in 72 hours, but like I want to have descriptions of how this slider works. So obviously less saturation, you go to gray, and then more is more colorful. But I want to have some kind of visual description of what's happening so people understand how these sliders work. And luminosity controls the brightness, so from black up to white, or virtually white, and then, you know, basically control your lightness. So you hit finish once you've selected all this, and if you don't select this, it just basically plugs me every time you say something. So yeah, if you just leave that blank, it'll say something that plugs Forlorn Gaming at Tech Valley GameSpace, so you don't want to leave it blank. Click finish, and you go to the select your cause and city screen. This screen I think is a little confusing for people because it looks like you're in the game, but I wanted to put something to kind of fill the space. But you know, a lot of people tend to think that they're in the game and try to control stuff, but you really need to select your cause from the list. These are some of the most popular protest movements in American history, so you might want to choose feminism because I'm wearing my feminist gamer shirt. And then you select your city. Now also here on the city select, it'll change the background, and right now these are like a filtered satellite imagery. Albany is the easiest, and again, it doesn't tell you which one, not even in a tooltip. It doesn't really tell you, it just says select the city to protest in. But I want to have something here to describe the difficulty. So Albany has the highest population, so you get a lot of citizens. It's 1,000, I think, 1,000 citizens, and so that's the most chance, easiest to bump into people to convert. And it also has the least police force that will bust you, so it's generally the much easiest level, and that's the default one that's selected. There's only 33 police on this level, or maybe 34. Schenectady, this is the medium difficulty level. This one you won't win very often, but you can pretty much win. It's got a lower population, so there's only about 667, or about 2/3 the population of Albany, and the police level is at 66 or 67 as well, so it's about 10% police, whereas Albany it's like 3%, so it's a pretty big jump, and there's less people, so it might take you a little longer, and there's a higher chance of getting busted here. So this is a pretty hard level for a medium difficulty. And then there's Troy, which is the hardest level. This is almost impossible because there's 334 people, which is only 1/3 the amount of citizens as Albany, and half as much as Schenectady. It's a smaller city, and the police level is at 100, so it's basically almost 1/3 of the sprites are going to be police on this level. So I'm just going to choose Albany to make it easy, and then when you click finish, you enter the game. And it's a more zoomed in, it's about, the distance here is about 1/3 of full HD, so it's stretched out by 1/3, but because of the filter, it doesn't look that pixelated. Now again, I designed this for 1080p, which is currently what it's at, but when you squish it down, the sprites get smaller, and oh, I'm getting pushed around. So everything will shrink down when you get a smaller resolution, so that's why I like the text. Oh, I see a police guy. You know, it becomes more difficult to see what's going on as you shrink. Even if you're watching this in a video at less than 1080p, it's going to be hard to tell what's going on. So one of the changes I want to implement in the next version is to set the default resolution lower, so rather than squishing everything down, it's going to expand everything up. So I want to set the default resolution for the game at a pretty low resolution rather than the 1080p that I did, which was my mistake. And you know, I think it works great for 1080p. You can sort of see what's going on, but you know, starting at the lowest resolution then working up is probably better for most people, especially even just watching this video. You probably barely see what's going on unless you're at full resolution. But when I left click or hit the control button, it will say either
Follow my cause for freedom.
that's my slogan, my custom slogan,
Feminism.
or it will say feminism, which is the cause. So it kind of
Feminism.
randomly
No
switches
justice.
between those.
No peace.
Now you see
Feminism.
they can shout stuff at me,
No justice.
Power.
and I should respond within 5 seconds to keep them. I'll show you what
What do
happens
you
when I
want?
don't. When I don't respond to them, you'll see about half my followers
do you
just
want it?
leave. And if I keep not responding, I keep losing
What do
followers
you want?
Justice.
randomly. So I have to respond within a certain amount of, like 5 seconds to keep my followers.
Follow my cause
So
for
I
freedom.
just go around basically
Follow my
shouting
cause for
stuff
freedom.
and converting
March.
people, hopefully. And when I get to
Hey,
100,
hey,
Follow
I'll
my
go to
cause
the
for freedom.
win screen, which hopefully I'll be able to do on my first try,
Feminism.
because it's Albany and that's pretty easy. So I'm just moving
March.
around with
Hey,
the,
hey, home,
you know,
Power.
it's digital control. I haven't implemented really analog
do you want?
Follow
control
my
yet,
cause for
but,
freedom.
I think if I get the mouse working the way I
Feminism.
want it to, you'll be able to click to move. I don't think I'm going to be able to do mouse moving
What
to
do we
move.
want?
Unite.
And you'll see as my followers, they become the
Feminism.
same as me virtually. It becomes harder to distinguish myself from them. I do have a different animation style, so I look
Feminism.
different. I look more like the stars or the police force, basically. And they also tend to bump you around a bit.
Justice.
But, you know, when they get close to you, they actually
Feminism.
made it so they move randomly. So they're less likely to
People,
completely
you are
surround.
busted.
Oh, I just got
Restart to try
busted.
again.
Did you see that? So when you get busted, the game, whether you win or lose, the game still plays, and they might continue chanting and dispersing, but I'm basically frozen. I can't move anymore. So this is the lose state, and the police, I don't know if you saw it, but if the police get in that same zone of influence that you can convert people with, they basically dart directly at you really fast. So you have to keep moving. You gotta try not to go directly at them because they go directly at you. But if you keep moving, and especially in an arc like a circular type pattern, it's very hard for them to hit you because they don't have predictive aim. Anyway, I'm gonna restart. I'm gonna leave it as default and try to win. And I'll choose staunch conservatism because that's completely different. Again, I'll play Albany, so I have a better chance of winning.
Don't tread on me.
See if I can win. See, don't tread
You are
on.
busted.
I
Restart
got
to
busted
try
immediately.
again.
I went directly at the cop. Let me try again. Let's do civil rights. Let's do default.
Forlorn Gaming at Tech Valley Game Space.
So if you notice, originally
Civil
I
rights.
tried to make this work with physics
Civil rights.
so that the people would move basically. Oh, there's a cop. People would basically move in a more smooth fashion.
Forlorn
Right now it's
Gaming
updating
at
their
Tech
motion
Valley
every
Game
2
Space.
seconds. So
Unite.
they move in a direction, and then 2 seconds later they
What
move in a
do we
different
want?
direction at a different amount. So it's not very,
Yes.
What do we
right now
want
it's very robotic.
Yes.
But this was just the way I could get it working in the browser, because
Power.
with over 1,000 sprites, I was having a lot of problems
Power.
with the physics and collisions, and it would just keep
Civil
crashing
rights.
the system to have this many things going around. Oh, there's a cop.
Justice.
So they're not that hard to avoid,
Power.
they're just hard to see
No
right
justice. No peace.
now.
Now.
I think part of... Oh, there's another one.
No justice.
March.
When
No
I
peace.
zoom in,
Civil
when I zoom
rights.
into the at a
Freedom.
lower resolution, it's going to be a lot easier to see these sprites, and the map is going to be
People.
bigger. You're going to be able to move around more because you're going to seem
Justice.
closer to the action. So another
Now.
strategy is to pick an area like this where it's very plain. It's easy to see what's
Unite.
going on. To sort of
March.
more easily see the people.
Civil rights.
So if I keep
Civil
left
rights.
clicking, it should do my generic slogan once in a while.
Forlorn
There it
Gaming
is.
at Tech Valley Game Space. Now.
So this is not
No justice.
really what I wanted
No
for the
peace.
final version of the maps.
Civil rights.
For the final version, I basically want
People.
to
No
create my own
justice.
custom
No
maps when I
peace.
have the time. So I want to basically have
Justice.
buildings that you can't just walk over like this. I want to have buildings
March.
that you actually have to go around, and I want to have streets,
Unite.
my own custom streets that are more... Whoa, 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 whoa.
Hey.
I want to have my own streets, and
People.
No justice.
yeah, I want to have it
Yes.
more like work like a real city. So
March.
it's going to
People.
it's going to take a lot of work, but I think the final product will
Power.
be better, less generic looking.
Civil rights.
And eventually I can take away like the copyright
Power.
Google stuff and all that, and stop using their images.
March.
So yeah, I'm
Justice.
going to have it so you have to basically move down the streets and sidewalks instead of just going
No
wherever you
justice.
want.
No peace.
So it'd be a little bit
Justice.
more difficult in terms of avoiding the police when
Forlorn
you're
Gaming at Tech
on
Valley
a
Game
street
Space.
rather than just moving in
Yes.
free space. And there's also
People.
I want to implement. Whoa, 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 whoa! I want to implement
Yes.
traffic.
What do we
They're still
want?
coming after me. I want to have a
People.
traffic system with cars,
Power.
and I also
Forlorn
want to
Gaming
implement
at Tech
What do
Valley
we
Game
want?
Space.
sort of a
Justice.
stamina system where you, instead of spamming
Now.
the
We want
buttons,
it.
you actually have to time it more. So you have
Freedom.
to kind of wait.
No justice.
So there's a
No
lot of
peace.
changes I want to make that I just didn't. I couldn't seem
Forlorn
to get
Gaming
working
at Tech Valley
correctly
Game Space.
to make a functioning
Justice.
game at the time, but there's definitely a lot of changes that
People.
I'm going to make to this when I make the final version. This is sort of
Yes.
the alpha, the proof of concept that I can make it work.
Justice.
And using Construct
do we
2
want
and the web
People.
type of development, there is limitations in terms of whoa, 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 whoa.
Forlorn Gaming
I did
at
it.
Tech Valley Game Space.
So when you win, you get
You've
these
turned the city of
sparkles.
Albany to your
And everyone
cause.
comes at you,
Civil
so you can
rights.
keep converting them
Yes.
if you want.
Now.
Um,
People.
And you say it. See, it was when I collide with things, I start growing. I actually start. Whoops.
Civil rights.
I actually start. Whoa, whoa, whoa! I start
Now.
I start growing
Freedom.
and I start basically eating them
Yes.
and getting bigger and bigger.
You are busted. Restart to try
and
again.
then I finally get busted. So that's the win state. You get to 100, everyone comes at you in the city, even though they're not your same color yet. They all come at you, and you can keep playing basically during the win screen, and you just get bigger and bigger. And if you don't hit restart, this is what happens. Eventually, the cops will get you because you're too big, which I think was a funny and cool thing. And because I'm busted now, I can't move or convert people, so eventually I'm going to lose my followers, but at the same time I'm still constantly kind of sucking people towards me. So I'll just keep getting bigger. It's just kind of a funny thing that I wanted to leave in there. I think it's... And you still got the sparklers going off. So that's basically the game. So let me go back main screen and then... Let's see... So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit more before I finish. So yeah, I do want to make a lot of improvements and a lot of things that I had trouble with, especially trying to work with physics and like having a more natural, almost orbit-like movement where they move with a certain force. I mean, it's hard to make a web-based game. It's basically running in HTML with JavaScript and stuff. It's hard to make it with that many objects. But that's the design I had for this game, so I wanted to make it... I wanted to find a way of making it work and using just the more robotic motions and ditching the physics seemed to work better. So I think I'm going to stick with the type of motion I have now without using physics. There are definitely some other things I want to try out to make the game run smoother, like lowering the resolution. And basically what that will do is it'll kind of stretch everything out at higher resolutions, but at low resolutions things will look better. Yeah, I think the game is probably an alpha. I think a beta phase. I was thinking of implementing multiplayer. So basically right now it's a single player experience, but there's no reason you couldn't have potentially more people on the screen kind of using different controls. I think implementing multiple controls might be a little tricky, so that's something I'm going to consider, like a local multiplayer version, or even like a competitive online version where maybe everyone has their own version and basically you're both struggling to convert more people, so I could have a different mode where different causes are basically going head to head to try to get to the limit of 100 citizens before either they get busted or, you know, before the other person gets 100. So that's definitely something, like the online play and stuff is something I'm going to consider, like maybe in the beta version before I finalize it and move on. But as of right now, it does work, and it's not unfun to play. It's just a little rough. It's hard for people who aren't familiar with games, and you know, knowing my audience that they were mostly game developers, I wasn't too concerned about them figuring out what to do. But yeah, I think getting the theme of my voice is my weapon is kind of something, and the whole protesting for a cause was something I wanted to get through, and I think the game does a pretty good job of that, even if there are a lot of rough spots that I need to work on. So anyway, it is very hard to make a game in a weekend. It is possible. I think what usually happens is you make a game that's unfinished in a lot of ways, because whenever you have deadlines, invariably it's going to be harder to finish something. So you have to make some sacrifices, and I'm hoping, you know, given the unlimited time that I potentially have to work on this, that I'll be able to basically make all the changes that I can, and there's a lot of limitations with making a web or a HTML based game, so, but that's kind of what I wanted to stick with because that's what I started with. So I might port this to other things, but I'm going to make sure at the very least it runs well in a browser, And the fact that the synthetic voice only works in Chrome, I don't know if there's anything I can do about that. It seems to not work in Firefox or Internet Explorer, unfortunately. I don't know if, like I said, I'll try to make options for people who can't use a synthetic voice. In terms of mobile, I mean, I would like to make this work in mobile, but I've tried, I have a new Galaxy Note 4, which is a pretty beefy phone. It's pretty powerful, but I can't run this. I can run it in a browser. Unfortunately, it basically freezes up the first time it goes to update all of the players, and my cat's coming to visit. So I might make a mobile version, but it's not going to be browser based. It's going to be... Ooh, my kitty. I'll make a version for... When I get the final version, I'll make a version for different platforms, and hopefully I'll have to see if it works. I might have to downscale things to make it work in mobile. Actually, what's this? What's this? Here's my kitty. So yeah, you got a special guest at the end of the video. And her butt. Come over here. She just wants attention. I have to go to work soon anyway, so I think I'll end the video here. And you get to see my beautiful beast. So yeah, Ludum Dare was a great experience, and I'm looking forward to making more games and doing more jams, but this is my first one, so thanks for everyone who kind of encouraged me, and you know, I'm glad to be more than just a game player now. I'm glad to be a game developer. And there's my cat's butt. Alright, peace.